Hi, I am Jason, and I am in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. And behind me is a really big building with the, not for the house, but on top of that it says J.W. Marriott. And Marriott was one of the greatest entrepreneurs in America of all time. But did you know that his origins were in Utah? I'll tell you more about it. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason, and I am in Marriott-Slaterville, Utah. And I'm not too far from the site of where hotelier, entrepreneur, a man among many titles, Willard Marriott, his birthplace, was. And there's a historical marker just right next to me, and I will just go ahead and read it off to you. Here we go. So a lot of you probably do not know, but he is known as one of the most influential entrepreneurs and people of all time, at least according to Forbes magazine. So Marriott, as most of us know, is a hotel chain. It has so many different properties all over the world. There's at least a couple theme parks that they owned, and there's also cruise lines and a lot of other businesses and a lot of other hotel chains as well. But here is, not too far, John Willard Marriott was born near this site on September 17th, 1900. He was the second of 8 children born to Hiram Willard Marriott and Ellen Morris. As a youth, he worked at the family farm and sheep ranch. He loved the open spaces of Marriott settlement and the grandeur of the Rockies. After completing an LDS or Latter-day Saints mission to the eastern states, he graduated from Weber Academy, taught the academy, and graduated from the University of Utah. In 1927, he married Alice Sheets and moved to the Washington, D.C. area. At this time, he also secured a franchise for A&W Root Beer and expanded the business. And that was in 1927. It doesn't say on there. But for the next 58 years, until his death in August 1985, J. Willard Marriott built his dream with his sons, Bill and Dick. Marriott International continues today as one of the most admired companies in the world. J.W. Marriott summed up his personal philosophy: take part in the things that go on in this wonderful world. Live life and make every day count to the very end. Very nice. So, in case you're wondering about this marker, now there's about probably a dozen of these similar markers. This is site number 4, and they were all put up by the city of Marriott-Slaterville, as well as this organization. So, I'm sure they probably were not able to find the exact site, or at least it's probably on private property, because as you can see, this area has well been built. You can tell a lot of these homes are like 10 or 15 years new. And hey, I mean, just about every place I've been to in Utah, there's always something developing. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Utah is the fastest growing state. So as far as the whole Marriott company, Marriott International, I mean, there's so much I can explain, but like it says on here, it all started with an A&W root beer stand. And he just kind of went from there. And I did not know that during the 1920s, franchising was a thing. You know, we all thought that Ray Kroc invented that whole method with McDonald's, but what do I know? I never had a business degree, so maybe somebody can answer that for me. And for those who have stayed in Marriott hotels, you probably noticed that in your hotel rooms, I don't know if they still do that today, but when he was still alive, and maybe years after, he did have a Latter-day Saints and a Mormon Bible, or Gideon's Bible, in every hotel room. So as far as the name Marriott-Slaterville, it says on Wikipedia that it was named after John Marriott, and I don't know if it was named after him, or maybe it was his grandfather, but I did visit his father's old ranch, and unfortunately that is private property, but there is a historical marker there. I'll just go ahead and show you the picture. But at the time of J.W. Marriott's birth in 1900, this was still known as the Marriott Settlement. and Utah was still a new state at the time, but it would eventually be named Marriott-Slaterville, and it was settled in, despite of it being settled as early as the 1850s, it did not become incorporated until July 1999. I know, so weird. But it was named after, the Slater part was named after the Richard Slater family, but there were also other families that settled here at that time in the 1850s, such as the Perry, the Smout, and the Field families. And amazingly, a lot of their descendants that are still alive, including the Marriott family, they do reside here in this town, which is just northwest of Ogden, Utah. And just not too far from where I was, as a matter of fact, down the street from the Marriott Birthplace marker, is the John Marriott and Suzanne Folks Marriott home site. In the 1850s, John Marriott and Susanna Houghton Fowkes established a homestead near this site. They lived in a covered wagon while they made an earthen dugout for shelter. John later constructed the settlement's first permanent log cabin. He was a farmer and also worked on the Central Pacific route of the first transcontinental railroad. John practiced polygamy, having 5 wives and 35 children. His wives in order of marriage were Susanna Houghton Fowkes, Elizabeth Stewart, Teresa Southwick, Margaret Burton, and Catherine Vaughn Evans. In 1890, polygamy ended as Utah sought statehood. Margaret Burton remained with John until his death in 1899. Alright, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in Marriott-Slaterville, Utah, just not too far from the birth site of one of the world's most influential hoteliers, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in America, J. Willard Marriott. And yeah, his life just began right here in the town that bears his family's name. All right, I am Jason, signing off.